Is it happening? It's happening. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and bears, it's me, Bradley G and KC. Look at that.
Stop.
I should be a rapper. If I was going to be a rapper, I'd be Candy Bar.
You'd be Candy Bar?
Candy Bar rapper.
Candy Bar rapper. Nice. Gotta say, that probably has already been done, but
Maybe.
that's okay. That's still funny.
Okay. Candy Bar rapper. Okay, enough with the stupid stuff. Let's get into something. We talked a little bit about what we're going to talk about, and I made some suggestions. And which one do you want to pick? Which one do you want? You want to save the health stuff for last?
Sure.
Okay. One we want to talk about is digital currency. Because I had an interview today with a guy that ended up being in prison for a stockbroker issue thing. And he talked about digital currency. It's always been weird to me, just the basic idea that people are talking about making money with money. But even if it's just the stock market, you invest into the stock market and it does this based on what?
Well, it's the same. I mean, it's kind of the same story with everything that people trade. It's
right.
I mean, it's no different with the digital currency than it is like with the stock or with the anything.
Or buttons and blankets.
Right. I mean, basically, digital currency is like investing in foreign currency. So, which is a thing. You can invest in foreign currency.
Except what's happening with it is the whole concept of like universal digital currency, where it's a one world currency that's the same for everybody.
Yeah, they are working on that.
And they will leverage it just like, well, the Chinese yen, is it the Chinese yen or the Japanese yen?
Japanese yen.
Yeah. And the Chinese what?
Yuan.
Oh. And then the dollar and the franc and all that?
Dollar, yeah, Canadian dollar, the American dollar, the franc, the
pesos,
British pound,
the
Mexican
cruceros,
pesos.
cruzaros, everybody's got that.
I think Spain uses pesos as well. I'm not sure.
They may
it could be the Spanish crown. It used to be the Spanish crown at one point.
But they might call it as it for something else. It's where it's just called something and it's just got a different value on it. I remember on my trip to Brazil, we were there when they were doing a transition between the cruzeiro and the cruzaro. I think that's what they were called. And everybody's all panicking. There was a run on the bank. All they were doing was going, you buy a pizza and it costs like $8 million, 8 million cruzaros or whatever. So they wanted to get rid of some of those zeros. So they just chop them off and say, okay, we're just going to call this a cruzeiro now. And everybody thought, you just took all my money. No, we just redesigned it. But everybody got all scared and they started. It was an interesting thing down there when that happened. And I was down there.
Yeah.
So
crazy. It's happened to a lot of currencies where they do that. Basically, almost every single currency in the world has had some kind of collapse or another. The dollar is close to having it, but the only values that haven't collapsed are ones that are based on real world commodities, like
something that's
gold
measurable.
and silver.
Something that's measurable like gold, because gold doesn't decompose.
Right.
It's a constant.
Gold is gold. It's always worth what it is because people use it. Or platinum or palladium
and because it doesn't decompose. It's the
Yeah.
same thing all the time. Whereas if you burn up a dollar bill, the paper turns into the ashes and now it's, what is it?
Yeah.
It's changed. It's a table. What do they call it? Table of elements. So like paper is one, and ashes is different. But gold is gold is gold is gold is gold is gold. That's why it's supposed to be connected. But somebody said, we don't need to do that anymore. And now it's all over the place.
Doing that quite a while ago.
So here's what I don't like about the whole digital currency thing that's happening that I think a lot of people don't really realize is the serial number that's on a dollar bill. There used to be this thing called Where's George? Do you remember that? Where'sgeorge.com?
Yes.
And you could track where that dollar, it's in Utah, it's in Denver, now it's in Fridley, and now it's over in Tokyo. You can follow it. Well, now there's going to be a little packet of information, a little bit, I guess it'd be called.
Yeah.
That Casey's got $1, and he just bought a couple of waters. Oh, look at Casey's, and it was at 642 or no, 448. He bought the waters.
Yeah.
And exactly how much they were, There's only 2 of them, and now it'll know everything. It'll carry, like, look at the storage has changed so much now. You used to have this big hard drive, big giant mainframe computer. Now
Right.
it's your phone as your storage device. It's got tons
Right.
of stuff. So all that data of everything that you bought. Oh, Casey just went and bought a condom. Why did he do that? He's got 7 kids already. That's why he bought a condom. Or he's going to sell it to somebody else that needs it. So that's what I don't like about the digital currency thing, is all the data that goes along with it. And people could, and the social, what is it called? Social justice score or something like that?
Yeah. So in China, they have a social score.
Yeah.
So they basically, it ties together where they're allowed to be and how they're allowed to shop and
Exactly.
who's allowed to take their money.
Slap your hand.
Yeah,
and,
based
you
on a
wanted,
social score. Yeah.
you wanted to buy gas, but you can't.
I can't believe, what I can't believe is that China, well, okay, I can believe it. That's what, you know, it doesn't really shock me that much, but I think it's
Amazing.
bizarre that to think about now that the US government has talked about the social score system, that they actually thought it was a good idea.
Well, that's just it. But
I'm like, why are you thinking this is a good idea?
But there's people that think that's a good idea, where they could punish people if they aren't kind and opening up the door for the little old lady.
Well, that's not why they punish people. But yes, that's the concept. They
That's
can
where
punish
it's
people.
going, though. I think it'd be a good thing if we could control them people if they think they're going to go buying whatever they want. If they're not a nice person, we'll just make them be nice.
Right.
We'll
you know?
force them to be nice. I think everybody should be nice.
Well, I mean, you know, that I think that there is some of that goes along, but it also has to do with what types of websites you're looking at, the kinds of, like in China, the kinds of music that you listen to. Is this music that is Chinese approved? Because if you listen to things that are, and you watch things that are Chinese approved, and it's part of the Chinese propaganda, then it doesn't affect your social score. And the more that you appear to be indoctrinated, the better you can do with your social score. But if you watch anything that is not Chinese approved, then your social score takes a hit. If you do something that is not Chinese approved, your social score takes a hit.
Yeah.
They listen to every single phone call.
Yes, and you can probably just throw the
And-
Chinese part out of that because it's happening everywhere.
Yeah, well, not the way that the China's doing the social score system. I mean, the way that they're doing the social score system,
Oh,
if you do not have a high enough of a social score, they will not let you out of your district to go buy groceries.
I know.
Like, it's gotten pretty severe.
I know, but there's people that are from the United States that are going over there and they're learning stuff like that. I know an artist
Yeah.
that is closely tied to the presidential family that goes over there. He's learning that way. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know who you're talking about.
Yes, you do.
I do?
He's an artist.
He's an artist.
Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Hunter Biden.
Oh, is he an artist? Con artist?
Yeah, you don't know that he does art?
I try my best to not pay attention to all the crazy stuff going on in
He
the world.
sells his art for a really, really lot, and it's ironic that art is good for moving money,
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be talking about this stuff. I'm going to get my YouTube account banned.
I think we're far beyond that, the kind of stuff we talk about on here.
Maybe. Yeah, they're probably just laughing at us.
Yeah.
So where did I go with all that? We're talking about the digital currency.
We were talking about digital currency, and we were talking about social score system in relation to digital currency.
That's what I'm saying. Is
it's totally true. They tried it in Canada. Look at what happened over the pandemic. They started having the whole thing in Canada.
And they turned the switch on the truckers' accounts.
Yeah. They just were like, oh yeah, you can't get your money. And literally the whole country was like up in arms about that. They're like, I don't care if we like or don't like what they're doing. You can't just take their money.
Almost all of them, but there's always somebody that has this weird idea.
There's always somebody. And
I
of
know.
course they'll give them lots of internet play and lots of radio play, and they'll put them on all of the news outlets to make it seem like it's the norm, that people really feel that way. But whenever you go talking to anybody and you talk to people about it, you find out very quickly that that's not the case. Like, I have a third of my family lives up there. So it's like, you know, my grandparents on my mom's side, um, they were from Holland originally. Well, Indonesia, but her dad was in the Dutch Navy. So she was born in Indonesia, but she was like the second youngest child. So
That's
yeah,
different. Holland and Indonesia, it's kind of different, huh?
it is different. But it was on a Dutch military base, same as like if you were a U.S. citizen and you were on a
Yeah, that's how that works.
U.S. military base, you're still an American citizen. So she was from Holland in that respect. But then anyway, so after the war, World War II, because they were in Japanese concentration camps, she ended up moving back to Holland. But then the eldest of the family, because there was a lot of kids, the eldest of the family, of the siblings, they were already married and establishing life and everything else, so they stayed there. But then, like a whole portion of the family, um, moved to Quebec, Canada, and then from Quebec, Canada, several of them moved to the States, to California, Southern California. So they spread out quite a bit. So I got to have my big family reunion with all of them delayed due to the pandemic. So we were all talking about all the crazy stuff going on during the pandemic. And finally, last year, we got to go ahead and have our giant get together again. And it was great. So, but we were talking the whole time about the whole trucker thing and how people felt about that and how everything was going up there. And, I'm like, all we know is what the media tells us, because this is a conversation I was having
It's
with him. We
true.
only know what the media tells us. I was like, I would really like to know, like, I try to watch things from people on the ground, like how they feel about it. I would really like to know how you guys feel about this. And they're like, well, we don't really like to talk politics because they like to be polite. They're Canadians.
Sure. Yeah, Canadians are polite.
Yeah. But they were like, I was like, well, it doesn't have to get political. And even if it does, I have a different political system. Like, I'm not involved. I have no skin in your game.
Well, that's what,
Let's just talk about it.
that's what's kind of weird about all that stuff. You say the media, and then you got to figure out which is the media. Especially nowadays, people got phones, and they are the media. They claim to be reporters, and go out and do stuff, and have their own media channel. And if they got a phone and they got the savvy to create enough traffic, they're doing better than the Super Bowl.
I don't consider individual reporters as being part of the media system.
I understand
When I'm talking
that.
about the media system, if I say the media system, so just to define it,
Mhm.
I'm talking about the giant conglomeration that basically is owned by two major entities
Right,
in
but
the
that's kind
entire
of my
world.
point, is the way that this stuff is shifting is the giant conglomeration is owned by somebody higher. That
Mhm.
higher person might say, why don't I put a couple $1 million over on Steve? We'll let Steve do some stuff. And Steve starts doing all this
Mhm.
phone stuff and delegates it out to about 400 or 500 other people with phones. And it has an agenda
Sometimes.
that's covering more than CNN.
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes they're sponsored, but that's the beauty of it.
I wouldn't even call it sponsored.
You can
Bribe.
but you can really pay attention and you can figure out, like, you know, a lot of these people will tell you who they're getting, ethically will tell you who they're getting funds from. If they don't tell you, then maybe they're not
But
being
some of
ethical.
see, Casey, some people don't even know. They're just going through their little phones, and it was created by Chat GPT, and they don't even look who created it. They just look at the video, and the video
Mhm.
says Trump said grab her by the pussy,
Right.
and he didn't, but that's what it says. So nobody even knows who created the account, and it's probably one guy created 18 accounts. He created a software over in India. There's a bunch of accounts that just kind of layer this thing over of what
Right.
somebody said, and they didn't even say it, and it's not even really them saying it. It's just an image of them. It was all created through AI.
It's totally true. It's the biggest reason why I am turned off with major anything that goes on anymore.
It isn't even a major. People don't even know that it's not. It's just some guy walking around.
Well, that's my point though, is that there's so much that's been going on, and so many things uh, that have been proven where it's counterintelligence is using people, where they're paying people to like basically social influencers
Mhm.
inside their areas. They actually, if you paid attention about a year ago, that it was actually common to see job postings that were from the FBI and CIA, where you could basically sign up as a social media influencer, and all they wanted to do was have you basically do certain content. And they basically just told you yay or nay on contents. And they gave you general outlines. But some of these social media influencers were like basically completely owned by them. They basically told them what to do and how to do it. And these
Right.
people would get those jobs. I on moral grounds did not apply to those jobs, but I saw them. It was actually recommended to me by somebody, and I
Yeah.
was like, no, who do you
But
think I am? I
but
am not a sellout.
the magician mind inside me has to figure out what was the intention of the person that's getting that to happen. Is he paying these people to socially influence this for the agenda, or is he creating a different agenda and paying these people to socially influence so they don't see the real agenda?
And you never know. And here's the scariest part now though,
Boo!
with AI, with the way that AI is now, and the way that digital everything works, it's really easy for me to basically get an AI system that can write the code to make a video that looks like you saying something that is not you.
Right.
They can make us look like we're saying anything they want.
That's kind of my point, that when we first sat down here, we were trying to figure out what we're going to talk about. And a lot of people don't, they look at the thing at face value. They don't go behind it. And like, so we first were talking about the banking system.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the banking system now, it's complicated. But if you reel it all the way back to when the miners had their gold and they're going, I carry it in the pouch, but it's getting heavy. I got to put it somewhere. And then I'll be the prospector. And then Casey, the banker, says, I'll watch it for you. I got a gun. You can put it in my wagon and I'll watch it for you. Make sure nobody steals your gold. I go, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And then it's getting late and Casey's kind of yawning. He's getting tired going, why in the hell am I doing this? I should get something out of this. He says, well, can't I have a little piece of that gold? And I go, sure, you watch it all night long. You can have a little piece of that gold. And then all of a sudden, the corrupt Casey comes out and goes, you know, I could get someone else to watch this stuff. And then I could get other people and watch it too. And I could loan it out to other people. I could loan out somebody else's money,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is corrupt. It's not their money to be loaned. But they end up doing that stuff. And that's kind of where we're at now. I mean, deeper than that. But that's what the banks are doing. You go to the bank and you put the money in the bank, and then you go, hey, I'd like to get some of my money out because I'm going to be buying a house. And the banker says, no, just keep that. We'll give you some new money.
Mm-hmm.
Gallagher does a bit about that. We'll give you some new money. So I can't use the $100,000 I got in there. They're going to give me a different $100,000 and then charge me crazy interest. How does that work? What do you do with my money? Oh, you're giving it to somebody else and charging them money. So it's a big money game. It's kind of crazy, and a lot of people don't realize that's kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't know why this stuff is coming into my head, all this magic trick shit. Probably because I spent the weekend at a place down in Eureka Springs. A friend of mine has a theater down there, and we were hooking stuff up and doing all that tricky stuff, and it's interesting. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
There's an effect that sometimes when you do a certain magic trick, you can figure out what the gimmick is, or you can see the move.
Hmm.
There's mentalist type stuff where you can't see the move because it's all in the head. It's all happening in the head, so there's no way to get caught. That's kind of what's going on with all this fugazi stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's true. The fractional banking and all of that, it's like, a lot of people don't realize how the game works. I
Well,
mean,
what
you
is
can
fractional
go,
banking? There's an example. There's a word. What the hell does that mean? Fractional banking.
they only keep a fraction of your money on hand at any given time because they know statistically that most people are never going to pull out the money that they actually put in. So they'll trade notes that say that they have
Yeah.
money in there. It's actually not money that they really ever have
So
to
they
get
gave
out.
it some terminology so they could tell people exactly what they're doing and the people wouldn't get upset.
No, it's the term that economists gave it.
Okay. Okay, then it's better.
Yeah, it's not really the term that they gave themselves. It's the term really that economists gave it. But I mean, it depends on whether you're an Austrian economist or
I'm neither.
a Keynesian economist.
I'm neither.
I fall into the Austrian camp, I think, because the Austrian economics, which is like von Mises and a few other different people like that, it's really all about not using fractional banking and keeping everything where it's a 1-to-1. So if you're loaning out, you can't loan out money you don't have, basically. Which is whereas what's happening right now, if you put $1 in there, they loan it out 10 times to 10 different people.
Yeah, that's
And it just creates money out of thin air.
yeah, that's even worse.
Right.
But they had to do that because everybody's looking for loans. And there's not enough money to give everybody loans.
Well, not entirely true, because
Okay.
if you have $1 million and you put $1 million inside the bank, you can loan out $1 million pretty easily, right? But if you want to print more money, how do you print more money? And that's where this comes in at, because they want to make more money. So in order to make more money, they have to magically make more money. And the way that they do that is by doing this whole thing.
Can't you just tell people you got 6 million and loan it out?
Well, I mean, banks got to have a lot more capital than that. That goes quick. 6 million actually, it won't get you very far, especially in today's
Well, I
world.
just said that term because you said 1 million.
Yeah.
So I boosted up to 6 million.
Well, right now, if you were to have $1 million in a bank, they can loan that out like 30-to-1.
That's kind of what I mean. They could
Yeah. They can be like, oh yeah, I have $30 million worth of loans. But here's the funny thing. This is where fractional banking is genuinely a racket. It really is. So here's the thing. If you take a loan out against their money for $10,000, they create a little bank account for you that says you have $10,000 in your personal loan. You put that money in there for them. Suddenly, they have $10,000 more to work with.
Isn't that what they did back in 2008 or something like that?
Oh, no, this has been going on since fractional banking started becoming a thing.
Oh.
Like, basically, because if you have a note that says, I have $10,000 inside this bank,
Oh, I get what I get.
and you go take a personal loan, and they see you go, I want a personal loan for $10,000. They go, okay, and they take the personal loan for $10,000, and you go, yeah, would you like that for cash, or would you like us to put it in an account for you and write these lovely checks to people? And you go, oh, that's really convenient. I would like it in the checks.
That's what I was getting at. There was a bank that was opening up accounts for people without their permission, just opening up accounts.
Oh, Wells Fargo.
I wasn't going to say anything. I was going to try and hide.
They were already tried for that, yeah. So interestingly enough,
What happened?
like Wells Fargo busted themselves on that. And
what did they do? Take some of their customers' money and pay off the lawyers?
No, they figured out what was going on because apparently there was like some stuff on the inside where they were padding numbers. And so they kind of busted themselves on that. I mean, a lot of people they didn't read the whole entire story on it, but it's quite fascinating. And since then, Wells Fargo has actually gone a complete 180. They're actually one of the major players in the upcoming quantum financial system, which is the QFS, which people have been working on now for years. And some people call it a conspiracy. However, I got to tell you, having worked in the networking world and actually building some of the early products that, well, I didn't build them personally, but I was a network engineer for a company that built components that went into this thing. And so I supported all those components and also designed the layout of how they had it. Like, it's a real thing and it's coming. And there are major like videos that are out there on it. The one of them was hosted by American Express, or was it US Bank? Might have been US Bank, but Wells Fargo. Bank of America. Yes, it was Bank of America. It was Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and then I think it was Capital One were the three major players that ended up building out the new quantum networking system that they end up having. And essentially, what's happening is as they're throwing it around, which is the reason why we see banks changing a lot right now. They're moving to like smaller centers and things like that, because the way that all of this is moving is that people are going to be in charge of their own money in very near future, because it's going to be easy for people to do. There's going to be no charge for people housing their money anywhere, because it's all going to be basically qubits. Qubits are a basic quantum,
and each one has a little volume control on it.
Not on qubits. That's the thing that's actually really cool about the quantum networking system. So intrinsically, in the way that quantum network works, you only have an owner and a receiver, and that is it. You can't have a man in the middle.
Is that the like dark web?
No, it's not. But it's like Bitcoin was trying to be to begin with. So essentially, you have your owner and then you have your receiver. Now, if I send you money and someone in the middle tries to watch it, even if they have some kind of software program or anything in there that actually to try and track this stuff, and they're trying to track it, the way that you would transfer it to the other person based on quantum networking principles, right? There is this quantum entanglement that happens.
Right.
And it goes boop, and then you have the money, right? So it's a transaction from me to you, and it's a private transaction. If I observe it, it changes one of those bits. One of those bits will change. They will no longer function normal.
Right.
So the encryption won't work anymore.
That's why there's going to be the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's going to be the good, what you're talking about. Then there's going to be the other stuff, and then there's going to be my coin.
My coin?
My coin, not your coin. No, there's the icky stuff where there is the person in the middle, the social justice stuff. I think that's what's going to be happening too.
But you wouldn't be able to implement that. That's my point. If you have so Web 3.0, that's the reason why they're dragging their heels on fully implementing Web 3.0. It's not as controllable. So Web 3.0, it puts users back in control. Because it used to be that users were in control back in the 90s, right?
My point is there's somebody that's smart that knows that all the dumb people don't know this, and they're going to make all the dumb people use it, and then they're going to be money slaves. And they're going to use these little volume controls to make people do shit. Little puppet strings.
I think that is one way that it could go. The other way that it can go is once we quantum network everything, we could find out that there's actually an active AI that's already working, which actually they've already talked about the fact that they've worked on, that doesn't allow that, that goes, oh yeah, no, we don't like that you're doing that. No, you can't do this.
Yeah, I wonder what they used in Star Trek.
Well, I would suspect that if we lived in a Star Trek world, I mean, they had credits. It was Federation credits, and that was their form of currency. Currency didn't really exist in the Federation during that time frame because we didn't need anything, and anything could be created out of nothing because of teleporter technology and matter conversion. So they could literally take any matter, including like, you know, hydrogen atoms being harvested off of the sun as the sun is just, yeah, pouring out wave after wave after wave of particles. They could capture all of that and they could turn it into carbon or gold or whatever they wanted.
Right.
So they
there's no
had the
spoon.
technology to be able to do that. Hence the replicators, right?
Yeah.
So they had no money. They had no money at all really in that universe. They had credits that they would use, that they would basically
That's
give
kind
as
of
an
where I was
allotment
going.
for the
They have,
Federation to go, oh yeah, we
yeah,
have this much to use.
yeah, the
But
credits are little bits of energy.
yeah,
They're data banks,
yeah.
data blocks.
But even energy was pretty much limitless in their universe.
Well, I mean, like little data bits of, I think that's what it's called. It's a bit of information.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a unit.
yeah. So it's really interesting, but
I don't know.
I
Maybe I'm just
don't
going to go
think,
crazy.
maybe you're just gonna go crazy.
Yeah, maybe I'll just go crazy.
I honestly don't think that as all of this begins to unfold, um, based on, because I actually have watched some of the symposiums and stuff talking about the quantum networking system and the QFS between the banks, because it's all public information. It's out there. You can actually go watch the videos on it. And after hearing about it all and researching it and actually watching a lot of it, I don't think it is going to be controllable by any one entity. In fact, it's so much bizarre, like it's so bizarre in the way that our world has been before, and people are so like, I don't believe this, that people were like, it's, we barely even understand how this technology works, they were saying.
So
They were like, it's, there's literally a quote from the symposium that I watched. It literally a quote. It's as if aliens came down one day and just gave us this technology, and then you have literally the foremost expert in quantum networking in the entire world, who was a musician just before he suddenly broke out in the quantum networking world. and used to talk about all kinds of things about aliens and stuff. And he is there going, like, he's like, yeah, that's like what exactly what happened.
so
And it's really hilarious because that's a conspiracy, is that that's actually what's happened.
before we go off on aliens, and we're still on the topic of money, what do you think of the mark of the beast?
I don't really put much weight in that, but no one's going to put a chip in my arm or tattoo me with anything.
That was my other question. That was my other question. If you're going to accept.
Yeah, I'm not interested in being a cyborg. You know, there was a time in my life whenever I was younger where I was like, oh my God, it'd be so cool to have cybernetic powers and everything else. And then I learned how all the technology worked, and I'm like, Jesus, somebody could literally just walk right next to me and be like, boop, and then you like fall down or your heart doesn't work anymore and you're dead. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm like, nope.
So you said
I'm not interested.
You don't give much thought to the mark of the beast, but what if it's not accepting a chip? What if it's just accepting a way? What if you like? Here's a quick example. I said I'm not going to accept it, but all of a sudden the new phone comes out and it's got that little button. I did the little thumbprint on my button. I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And my bank account, facial recognition thing, I did it.
Mm-hmm.
So what if that's the mark?
That wouldn't make any sense. You're not marked.
You mean like a physical mark?
Yeah.
So that's how much you give it thought. You give it, it's got to be like a Sharpie.
It's got to be like a. Well, I mean, that's the myth, is that it's a mark. But I mean,
Kind of, but X marks the spot and you start digging, but there's no X on the ground. You just started digging there because X marks the spot.
I mean, you have somebody live on an island where all they can eat is psychedelic mushrooms and fish that swim around, and give them enough time and they're going to write Revelations and talk about the mark of the beast. I mean, seriously, it's going to happen, and that's what happened. So, I mean, I don't put much weight into a lot of that kind of stuff, because I'm like, I think people live the way that they're going to live, and I'm not really concerned. And also, here's another thing, like, I know people are going to give me crap about this. Of course, it's going to be great for your statistics. So, like, there is this whole concept on somehow we can trade our soul. How can you trade something you don't own?
Oh,
I mean, based
maybe.
on the way that everything works, right? In that same belief system, right? God is omniscient and omnipotent and gave us a soul. And yes, he gave us free will, but also not, because he's omnipotent and omniscient, and we have to follow rules and laws and everything else. And also there's a thing called fate and all this bunch of other stuff that's out there. And like, so if you follow the logic and you go all the way down, right, of this entire logic, in the end, you have to come to the conclusion that your spirit, the spirit and the energy and all of that is in you, that makes you up, belongs to God. How can you give away something you don't own?
Maybe you just thought you owned it and really you're just renting it.
Well, that's my point. So,
But you still got to ride the vehicle.
sure, but if I'm like, oh, I'm going to make a deal with the devil, I mean, how is that going to hold legal weight? I can't sell somebody else your house.
No, but you still got to ride it, not the house, the vehicle, the car.
Right.
So you sold it. You sold your soul to the devil, and now you're still riding around with the soul, and you accepted the mark.
But that's just your body. Once
It's your
you're,
soul.
but it's,
It's everything that you're doing, unless you decide to leave it and
but that's what
ascend.
I'm saying. Like, I mean, your soul doesn't really belong to you. So how would you be able to do that?
That's what I mean.
If it belongs to this ultimate creator, God, right? Which I'm not saying I don't believe in God. I do believe in a God. I'm not a Bible guy, I would say.
I'm not either. To me, God is an energy. It's a I wouldn't even say a person. Some people say a person, but it's just a way.
Yeah.
I don't get biblical with it, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that whole concept of the mark of the beast, that's in the Bible. I look at it as it's a way, because they used to have these things called checks, use checks, and all of a sudden they came up with this thing called a credit card. You can use this credit card, and it's much more easier than writing out a check. You just use a card, and now you do is use the card, and you got to punch in the little numbers, and
sure.
Or then you got this machine goes, and it's a lot easier now. Then they come up with one. Oh, you just got to strip it. It's just a little swipe with a strip. It's a lot easier now. And then just punch it in there, and you set it in.
Now you just tap it.
Now you just tap it. Pretty soon it's just going to be.
They put a chip in your arm.
No. Just think it.
Right.
So you go onto your phone and holy shit, all there is Coca-Cola. Where the heck did the Orange Crush go? Oh, well, I'll just have a Coca-Cola because that's all you see. Then you see someone else over there. Where'd you get the orange? Can't have it. You can only have what you can see.
I suppose.
It's kind of like the life that we're in. We don't know what it's like in frickin' Bali or Thailand or at this moment in time. We're
No,
here.
we don't. I know what life is like in Minneapolis area, Minnesota.
Well, actually, you just know what it's like right here in this area because when all that George Floyd stuff happened, we were in, I don't remember where we were, but I wasn't down there. I didn't see anybody get hurt.
I worked with several people who were in the middle of it, and I
know then you hear it from them, but you
definitely
didn't
traveled
experience it.
down in that area multiple times.
I was driving for
I
Amazon
deliberately
for a while.
didn't want anything to do with it.
No, I don't either. So I don't know what happened all down there or anybody else that does. I don't go in those areas.
I lived through the Rodney King riots.
Yeah,
And
that stuff. Forget about it. I don't need to
yeah, that was enough of riots for me and to last a lifetime. Like seriously. The riots, the Rodney King riots were way worse than
Now
any
this
of what
weird
was
stuff-
experienced
This
here.
weird stuff's happening in the colleges and all these protests and stuff.
Again, I'm not plugged into what's going on in the world right now very much.
Well, it's that war. There's another war over there. It's not the Russia-Ukraine one. It's a different war. Somebody's having a war, and some
Oh, is it
people,
the Iran war? Is that the one you're talking about?
No one's talking the Palestine one.
Oh, okay.
But they're all over the place, and these little wars happen.
Everybody fights.
And somebody
They all wanna
sits in
kill
their
somebody.
living room and go, I think that's wrong, and I'm going to go to the college and I'm going to complain about it. And I'm going to go sit on 35W and stop all the truckers.
Right, because somehow, look, if people don't want our government to be involved, sitting and like complaining at the rest of the citizens that you don't want to be involved, speaking as a former city council member inside the area and somebody who's spent like a lot of time learning about the politics in the area. Yes, I'm unplugged now, but I was very plugged in at that time frame. I've got to tell you, that is the worst way to get it done. If you really want things done, the only way to do it is to get directly involved with your representative because they legally have a right to vote for your voice as a representative of you, meaning their vote matters, yours does not in that way. So we live in a representative society.
Yeah.
A regular democracy would not work because it would be a bunch of wolves and sheep deciding what to have for dinner, and it wouldn't work. So we have a representative society, and obviously it's not working right now, but that's because nobody's following the rules. If you want them to follow the rules, choose a different representative. You need to pay attention to your representative. Don't pay attention to Washington. Don't pay attention to what everyone else in the whole world is doing. Just pay attention to your people. Just your people. That's all you need to know about is the people who are directly related to what you can take care of. And
Right.
the biggest things you can actually have to do with in your area that gives you the most amount of power locally. If you really want the most amount of power locally, pay attention to your commissioners in your county. Pay attention to your elected sheriffs.
I was going to say sheriffs.
They're extremely important because they're
They're
the closest constitutional representative you have to you and your property. And your sheriff is directly tasked with taking care of you and your property. They're the closest one. And you need to make sure that you have commissioners to support him. So you need to make sure that you put in place all the people in the county to be able to support them. And then, of course, there's also your local government, so your city. Make sure you get involved with that as well. There's a whole bunch of, and once you start learning even about that, you'll find out that there's literally a bunch of different entities that you that you get taxed by.
That's true.
It's not one. So I think
And the way to
where
do
I
it,
live, it's 17 different entities that get to tax that one property code. 17 different entities. And that is just the local property tax units.
And that's the way that screaming and stuff with your sign and megaphones and disrupting and all that. That's not the way you talk to your representative.
No, yeah, that's not the way to talk to your representative. Emails work really well, but honestly, the best way to handle it is by having a phone conversation. If they're a good representative, they will do their best to try and have a conversation with you. But keep in mind, they do manage thousands and thousands of people. So when you're voting for a representative, make sure that they represent you. And make sure your state representative is absolutely selected, because really we're supposed to be a representative republic that's made up of separate districts called states. And so if your state is supposed to be fairly autonomous, if the powers are not actually given to the federal government inside the Constitution, the powers belong to the state. It is literally, the Constitution is a set of negative liberties. It says, federal government, you don't have any rights except for the rights that are delineated here. Most people don't understand that. That is where you need to actually start understanding the government.
So screaming about Trump and Biden doesn't do nothing.
Because they don't directly represent you.
No.
They don't represent you at all. Biden and Trump represent the United States to foreign governments as a commercial entity and as a defense network. That is it. And they're not supposed to do anything else. They get to like decide some like excise taxes and everything else. Our current presidents way overstepped their bounds. If you want to rein them in, rein in your local governments.
Yeah,
if you rein in the local government, you win.
And to do it, it's probably, what do they say, that honey attracts more, whatever that saying is. Be nice is my point.
Honey attracts more flies.
Something like that, or more bees, or whatever. Yeah. Be nice to people.
You catch more flies.
Be nice to your representative. Don't go over there and scream at them, because that ain't going to do it.
Yeah. But I don't know if, I mean, you kind of attract the most amount of flies with a carcass.
Oh, God.
It's why I never understood that saying. I'm like, you know,
well, I probably shouldn't have said the saying. It got us distracted.
Not really. What got me distracted was talking about the local government.
My point is, be nice to your representative, because they might not answer your email, they might not see your email, but if you go to the city celebration and sit down and have coffee with them and be nice, they'll probably listen to what you have to say.
Yeah.
But if you go there with a big sign and you start screaming and have your little temper tantrum, these little fucking college kids and stuff.
I would actually love to teach people how to get the most out of their local governments, become involved in their local governments, and actually be able to empower themselves and empower their neighbors and seek like true freedom, like by doing that. Well, I would love to teach courses on that, but
I can invite you to some.
It's kind of funny.
I can invite you to some events like that woman that wrote that. What is it? The Fall of Minneapolis.
I don't know that book.
You don't know that one either?
Mm-mm. It's a book, you said? She wrote
it? It's a documentary about the George Floyd thing.
No, I severely limit my negative intake of stuff that's going on.
This is just a different point of view. It's the other side of the coin.
I have met some of the people that were involved in that whole thing abstractly on both sides of the coin. And the only thing I was able to come up with was that there was a lot more going on than what it really seems like. Like, if you want to talk about something conspiratorial, like, oh my God, whenever you get into the nitty gritty about that whole George Floyd thing and some of the other weird stuff that happens, oh my gosh, yeah, it gets really conspiratorial.
It does. I mean, the guy with the umbrella. Did he have an umbrella at the AutoZone? You don't remember that guy?
I don't know.
How do you know so much if you don't pay attention to things?
I do pay attention to a lot, but I pick and I choose what I'm paying attention to at any given time,
Right.
because I'm rather focused. But ever since I started having babies 6 years ago, I've kind of checked out of a lot of that stuff, because, honestly, if you consume too much negative stuff, it affects your brain and it affects how you see the world.
It does, but you can also look at things positively negative. If you see a car coming down the road, you
Yeah.
can be smart and not step in front of it.
Yes.
And you can be stupid and step in front of it. So one is negative, one is positive. One is a good thing, one's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And it was just a car coming on the road. That's kind of my point. Be aware of what's going on out there.
Sure.
So
I have a lot of people like yourself that keep me informed. There's a lot of people I know that keep me informed, my wife included, because my wife is like a social networking queen.
well, my wife is she's learning a lot of other stuff, but I had a video on my thing, and she goes, "They're protesting at the colleges." And you didn't hear about that either, but it's all over the place.
Colleges always protest, and it's always about things that are outside of their control.
I know. That's because the colleges taught them how to do that.
It's true. We did. They also teach them.
What are we at with time here? 5:52.
Yeah. Colleges also teach people very bizarre things that don't really work.
Well, I was, Charlie Kirk.
The name sounds familiar.
Yeah, Turning Point USA. He was having a debate.
Yes, I do know who that is.
He was at a college talking about how he believes that college is a scam. And people would get up on the microphone and say, "Why do you think college is a scam? You learn a lot, you get a degree, blah, 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 blah." And he was saying that you don't need, most of the people that are in college are going to get a job when they leave college that doesn't require a degree.
Yes.
Most people do that. But then
I agree with that.
The guy kept on arguing for it.
Yeah.
And Charlie Kirkwood said, "This is a perfect example. You keep arguing for what's going on, and you're already indoctrinated into it." And he was arguing that I've got this degree and all that. And Charlie Kirk asked some questions, and the guy didn't know who that person was, and asked another question. The kid didn't know what it was. But
Sure.
Charlie Kirk knew a lot more about, I think they're talking about economics. Charlie Kirkland knew a lot more about it, but he dropped out.
Yeah.
So how did Charlie Kirk know more about it than the guy that was schooled?
He was self-taught.
Charlie Kirk was self-taught. The other guy was indoctrinated or programmed.
Right.
Anyways, I don't know a lot of the details of how to communicate them, but in my head, I understand what's going on because.
Yeah. No, I totally understand. I mean, one of the biggest things about that I disagree with about college is that the majority of stuff that they now want people to get degrees for used to be apprenticeship programs. Literally, you would go get a job and they would pay you to learn on the job.
Like how to weld.
Like how to weld.
And now they joke about lesbian dance theory. And there's no job for that.
Right.
But I got a degree.
You can literally make up your own degree in anything. And
I have a DMA.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean anything. That's
nice.
All I got. So, okay, we're kind of done. Anything else you want to share?
No, I wasn't. I was not as prepared today for.
Well, I didn't know
our conversation because I was
prepared.
Like out there working.
We're never. Oh, yeah. Sometimes you're thinking about it.
Sometimes today I was very focused on not lopping my fingers off while I was cutting up.
You got to do that. It doesn't matter.
Stuff.
We just bring up a topic, whatever starts coming up, and it goes down a rabbit hole, anyways. Because we didn't talk about the health and the Hippocratic oath and all the way that stuff works. Like you got an issue and take a couple of these pills. And
right. We can totally talk about that. The biggest problem I have with the whole healthcare system right now, we won't go off on a tangent, but I'll just say this before we close. Biggest problem I have, and this goes in a lot of segments of our structures here in the United States, is that insurance companies run it all now. They run so much of it. They're the ones who are dictating how people are taken care of. And they do not actually have a fiduciary duty to make sure that you are healthy. Only,
Yes, it's not healthcare.
yeah, it's not, they're not in healthcare, they're in making money. And the insurance company, all they want is to make a buck. And we're paying, and everybody's all, oh, everybody should have healthcare. Why? Why should everybody have healthcare? I don't understand this. Why do you want someone in the middle that you have to pay? Because now you have to pay them too. And the insurance companies have created so much documentation and so much work and so much right in the middle of all of it that they're actually eating a greater portion of the pie than the healthcare itself costs.
Well, to summarize, the pharma, the medical, the banks, and the insurance.
Oh yeah, it's all paper. It really is. It's so
Okay,
ridiculous.
I'm going to turn this off before we go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, we're going to talk
Okay.
about it next time though.
There we go. After I come back from Costa Rica. You have a nap and enjoy the rest of the day. Look at, I'm crushing your head. I'm crushing your head. Remember that?
Yes.
I'm crushing your head. Okay, bye. See you later. Be good.